Parsha Snow. Let's take a part of the Parsha that's not that often studied because it's very repetitious and sort of boring. But it has to do with the, you'll forgive me, it has to do with the Chanukas HaMizbeach, the inaugural of the altar in the Mishkan that we read about in Parsha Snow. There are 12 tribes, and at the end of Parsha Snow, each one of the 12 tribes brings a specific gift, a sacrificial gift. The Karbano, the carbon of that particular tribal prince, Karas Kesef Achas, is one silver platter. Shaloshimu Meya Mishkala, 130 was its weight, 130 selas or whatever the standard weight. Mizrak Echad Kesef, one bowl made out of silver. Mizrak Echad Kesef, Shivim Shekel B'Shekel HaKodesh, worth 70 silver shekels. Shenehem Mileim, Soles, both of the platter and the bowl are filled with fine flour. Lava Shemen B'Nisko, mixed with oil, and it's libation. Right? Now, the gift is exactly the same for every tribal prince. And you go through 12 paragraphs which are exactly identical. Now, of course, you could ask the question, why does the Torah bother to list every single one of these 12 paragraphs? Why couldn't it just say that each one of the tribal princes brought the exact same gift? Save yourself a lot of space in the Torah. It's a good question. There are a number of answers to this question. One of the answers, and there are many different ways to answer this question. Okay, so it's each one of them, one silver bowl, 130 shekels weight, one silver basin, 70 shekels, both of them filled with flour mixed with oil for a meal offering, one gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, one young bull, one ram, one sheep in its first year for an elevation offering, one he-goat for a sin offering, and for a first feast peace offering, 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, 5 sheep in their first year. Each and every one of them offered the same thing, and a partridge in a pear tree, right? But anyway, so the Meforshim asked the question, why did the Torah have to repeat each one's offering? Some Meforshim say it's because each one brought the exact same amount without being commanded to, and it just so happened to align because there was such a sense of alignment, and that was part of the miracle. But here's an interesting idea, is that on the 7th day, there's 12 consecutive days that each tribal prince is bringing his individual offering to consecrate the altar. On the 7th day, the tribal prince for the tribe of Ephraim is Elishama ben Amihud. And the Torah launches into his sacrificial offering as well. There's only one problem. What do you think that problem is?
It's Shabbos.
It's Shabbos. Someone once asked me that question like years and years ago, one of my congregants when I was a rabbi in another community. And I said, I never even thought of that. I'm sure that's a silly question, but I can't think of why it's a silly question. And the truth is, it wasn't a silly question. It was a very good question. Now, you could answer the question by saying, well, it's a communal sacrifice, and communal karbanos are brought on Shabbos. But the truth is that the pasuk seems to indicate that it was an individual sacrifice because it was brought by that tribal prince. And if so, it should not have the ability to be doche Shabbat, to override Shabbos. You can't bring an individual karban on Shabbos. You can only bring a communal karban on Shabbos. So what do you do with this? How do you get over this? The Medrash is actually bothered with this question. And it says, here's source number 2. It says, Ephraim ma'oz roshi. There's a pasuk in Tehillim that says that Ephraim, who's the one who brings his korban on day 7 out of the 12 days of sacrificial offerings, he is the strength of my head. That's the way the pasuk in Tehillim describes Ephraim. So it explains the Midrash, Medaber b'nasi Ephraim, shehekriv korbano lachanukat hamizbeach biyom haShabbat. This pasuk refers to Ephraim, who had the strength to be able to offer his personal offering on Shabbos. And how do I know that it was Shabbos? Shenamar bayom hashavi'i nasi livnei Ephraim. On the seventh day, the prince of Ephraim. Minayin sheyom hashabat haya. How do I know that that seventh day was Shabbos? Lefi shekavar amarnu oto hayom shehitchilu hanesiim yom rishon haya. Because we've already clarified in a prior paragraph that the very beginning of the offering started on a Sunday. Mikana talamed sheyom zayin lahakrava Shabbat haya. And therefore we must conclude that the seventh day was Shabbos. Shelo tomar heichi lelat Shabbat, v'halo ein korban yachidoch et Shabbat. Don't ask the following. How could Ephraim offer his sacrifice? You can't bring an individual sacrifice on Shabbos. V'zehi kriv b'Shabbat. So Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore Hashem responds and says, Lo al piv asa. It's not that he decided of his own volition to bring this korban, but rather, Sha'ani amarti LaMoshe, Nasi echad layom yakrivet korbano lachanukat hamizbeach. That I want one tribal prince every single day to bring his sacrifice below hefsek, without interruption, consecutive days, yakrivu ze achar ze. Each one has to offer on a consecutive day, one after the other, and therefore, hevei Ephraim ma'oz roshi. And that shows that Ephraim was the strong one, because it fell out that he would bring his sacrifice the seventh on the list. He was already designated as the seventh on the list. Lekach ne'emar bayom hashevi'i nasi livnei Ephraim. And that concludes the Medrash, is why the Torah makes a point of saying that on day 7, Ephraim brought his korban. Now, it seems like the Medrash asks a simple question: how could he bring it? It was Shabbos. And the answer is, by divine decree. But the Medrash seems to be making a big deal about it. This shows that Ephraim is the strong one. Where does that show that? The Medrash is implying that Hashem said only Ephraim has that ability to have such koach, have such oz, such strength. He's the only one that I want to override the Sabbath with his korban. So now let's take a look at a midrash that appears just a couple of paragraphs after that. And it says, Davar acher, Divrei chachamim kedor vanot uchemismerot netuim. In Sefer Koheles, it says that the words of the sages are like dor vonot and mismerot. What are dor vanot and mismerot? They're nails and pegs. And what it means is, Maha mismar hazeh hanatua bedelet hu mekayem hadapim, that just like a nail, when it's stuck on a door, it can hold up a shelf. I'm not sure exactly what kind of carpentry we're talking about, but it's some kind of carpentry where you bang in the nail in the door and it holds up a shelf, or it holds up maybe the lintel, I'm not sure. Kach kishahat tzadikim gozrim hakadosh baruch hu mekayem divreihem. So too, when a tzaddik makes a decree and says, this is what I want, Hashem will allow that decree to stand. Teida lecha mi Yaakov, and we can prove this from Yaakov Avinu. B'sha'a shebireich Menasha ve'Ephraim, that when Yaakov gave a blessing to Menasha and Ephraim, remember that story in Parshat Vayechi, where Yosef brings his two sons to receive their final blessing from Yaakov on his deathbed. And which one was older of the two? Menasha is the older son. He brings Menasha, places him on his father's right side, and places therefore Ephraim, the younger son, on his left side. That would be the normal protocol. So, B'sha shebireich Menashe ve'Ephraim asa et hakatan kodem lagadol. But Yaakov switched it, and he made the younger son Ephraim go first. Gave him a prominence. Shenemar vayasem et Ephraim lifnei Menashe. That Yaakov placed Ephraim before Menashe. V'kiyem hakadosh baruch hu gezerato, and God fulfilled Yaakov's decree, and that it was from then on that Ephraim became the more prominent shevet over shevet Menashe. For whatever reason that Yaakov had, he foresaw with Ruach HaKodesh that Ephraim was destined for more greatness than Menashe. Kishi Yaakov gazar shetehei harabanut leEphraim, kiyem hakadosh baruch hu divaro. When Yaakov saw and decreed that Ephraim should assume the higher leadership role, God fulfilled his decree, kimismar hanatua, like a banged-in nail, like you can't take out that nail and it's going to hold. The Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ho'il v'gazar Yaakov el Ephraim sheyehi rishon, af ani asimenu rishon l'chol davar. And God basically goes along with everything that Yaakov said. Yaakov said that Ephraim has a higher level of leadership. I'll go along with it, and that's why Ephraim is the father of the of so many of the leaders of the Jewish people, starting with Yehoshua ben Nun. So therefore, af korbanot hanesiim kishebo lahakriv Ephraim akriv rishon bayom hashevi'i umenashe acharon bayom hashemini. And therefore, in the korbanos that we read about in Parsha Snow, Ephraim comes on day 7, and Menasha only comes after him on day 8. V'chein hu ita bayom hashevi'i nasi livnei Ephraim. Ve'achar kach bayom hashemini nasi livnei Menashe. Ve'alav hakatuv omer. And therefore, about Yaakov it says, Vatigzar omer v'yakem lach. That you, the tzaddik, makes a decree and God fulfills it for you. Now, if we take the two midrashim together, which is what the Shem Mishmuel, Rav Shmuel of Sachachav does, we discover that really only Ephraim has this penchant, this ability to be able to override the Shabbat. And this is what he points out. He says, let's take a look at source number 4 together. The midrash mashma dahashe korban nasi yom hashevi'i dochet hashabbat hu mishum shehiktim Yaakov Avinu et Ephraim lifnei Menashe v'ilu haya Menashe kodem Ephraim uba yomo lahakriv b'Shabbat lo haya dochet hashabbat. From these midrashim that we've already just cited, it seems like that if Yaakov had not reversed Ephraim and Menashe was, listed as number 7 on the list of the Nesiim, he wouldn't have been able to override Shabbos. In other words, this was all by divine orchestration, starting with Yaakov Avinu, because only Ephraim has that ability. Now, v'yesh lahavin lama. That's like what makes Ephraim special, that he can override Shabbos and Menasha can't. Menasha, okay, maybe he's not destined for the same level of greatness, but he's not chopped liver either. Like, what's special about Ephraim? V'nir'eh. So he says something, an idea that he develops in a number of places in the Shem Mishmuel. Dihinei Shem Menashe al Shem ki nashani Elokim et kol amali. Where does Menashe get his name from? Well, Yosef gave him his name. Menashe is the elder son. And why does Yosef name Menashe Menashe? As the pasuk says in Parsha Snow, ki nashani Elokim et kol amali ve'it kol beit avi. God has allowed me to nashani. Anyone know what that word means? To forget. Exactly. Lenashot is like nashiti tova. It says in the book of Eicha, I've forgotten all goodness because of all my suffering. So the idea is that Yosef is praising Hashem that through my new life in Egypt, Hashem, you've allowed me to forget all of my toil and turbulence and all of the troubles that I had in getting down to Egypt. V'hi hasarat hakochot hami'ikim nimshechet misur meira. But on a deeper level, what Menashe sort of represents is the ability that a person has to uproot all of the evil that is in their past. I've forgotten all of the bad. I've gotten rid of all of the bad in my life. I've sort of put it out of my mind, my soul. I've been able to uproot all of the evil that is within me. Ki kamo sheha'ish mitrachek et atzmo meira, marchikin mimenu lu'umato et kochot hachitzonim hami'ikim umatridin oto mehasik shleimuto. Just like a person tries to distance himself from evil, so too he can be gifted by heaven to have all of the evil removed from his life. In other words, to have all of those impediments that are preventing him from reaching his completeness, his fulfillment, those are removed. That's what Menashe represents. V'shem Ephraim, but Ephraim represents just the opposite. Al Shem ki hifrani Elokim be'eretz onyi. What did Yosef say when Ephraim was born? Not that God has caused me to forget my travail, but that God has allowed me to what? Ki hifrani. Hifrani. What does hifrani mean? To be fertile, exactly. God has allowed me to grow and flourish in Egypt. Totally different attitude, right? Menasha is, I've put aside all of the bad in my life, and now I can flourish with Ephraim. You see the difference in attitude between Menasha and Ephraim? The very, very stark contrast. So he says, Hu hitrachavut gevul hakidusha nimshach me asei tov. He says this is the ability to expand and to grow in one's spiritual development. And that's the asei tov. There's sur meira, and there's the asei tov, like the pasuk in Tehillim, sur meira va'asei tov. Turn away from evil and accumulate goodness. Ve'al kein hayta da'at Yosef lahaktim Menashe le'Ephraim al shem seder hakatuv sur meira ve'achar kach va'asei tov. Very natural progression. Person in his development in life has to uproot the evil first and then work on the good, right? Isn't that the normal progression of life? You have to sort of weed, before you plant anything in the soil, you have to weed out all of the pests and the bugs and the weeds, and then put in, and then plant the seeds and hopefully add the fertilizer after that point. But if you try to plant seeds in a place where there's lots of weeds, it's not going to work, right? Isn't that the way life goes? That's normally what Yosef was expecting. He says, "Uchamosha hayta avodat Yosef ba'atzmosha zachal ma'alato al yedei sur meira." And really, if we look at the life of Yosef, there's a progression. Is that he really goes according to sort of like the model child. He goes through his trials and tribulations in life and is able to escape injury, is able to escape prison, is able to escape the advances of Potiphar's wife, puts all of that behind him, and then the very next chapter of his life is this tremendous flourishing and prosperity that he has as the viceroy of Egypt. Ach, Yaakov Avinu, alav hashalom, sam et Ephraim lifnei Menashe. But Yaakov in his wisdom puts Ephraim in front of Menashe. Hainu shemachmat hitrachavut gevul hakidusha memela nitbatulu kol kochot hachitzonim kehamez doneg mipnei ha'esh v'zohi avoda yoter gevoha. And he says, and he develops this idea in a number of places, he says, life is not always neat. And you can't expect to wait for all of the evil to be eradicated before you can start flourishing. You have to at some point resign yourself to the fact that, maybe I'm not going to get rid of all of the evil and all of the bad. And I better start working on the good first. And therefore, you work on the expansion of holiness is the term that he used. And as a result of that, the evil will dissipate like wax melts when presented with a flame. And in a sense, he says this is an even loftier type of service. It's not a progression that is normal. It's something that is not neat. It's not tidy. But it's sometimes what's human and what has to be done. V'zot eitzah ha'yu'utza le'ish ha'yisraeli. And this is good advice for every single Jew. Shebal yamtin ba'asiyat ha'torah v'hamitzvot ad sheyiva'er hara mikirbo. You can't afford to wait until you uproot all of the negativity that is within you before you start working on the positive. Rak reshit davar lehitametz bilimud toratenu hakadosha va'asiyat mitzvoteha. He says, you may be the most wretched and rotten person who ever walked this earth, but don't let that stop you from doing a mitzvah. We all get caught up in, isn't it hypocritical if I do this, but would I do this, right? So the answer is, so who cares? So be taka a hypocrite. Don't allow hypocrisy, because you know who you are, to ever prevent you from striving for spiritual greatness. Go ahead and do a mitzvah, even though you're not worthy of that level of observance. Okay? And that in itself will be sort of like your cleansing and purging of the evil, because by starting to do all of these mitzvot, your davening and your Torah study, even though you're not holding on a very high spiritual level, but those actions themselves will help purge you of some of the demons that you currently possess. Uche'inyan Shabbat dekivia v'kayama sheba'a al ha'adam kidushat Shabbat af ba'odo bilti muchad. And he says, and this is the connection to Shabbat. So Yaakov Avinu's whole mahalach in life is, we're not going to go in the neat path, in the normal trajectory, but we're going to put the Asay Tov before the Sur Meirah. I'm going to put Ephraim before Menasha. And that's the pattern that I'm setting for Jews for all future generations. You can't expect to get everything neat and clean before you start advancing in your growth. Sometimes life is going to be complicated and even hypocritical, but you've got to continue moving forward. And therefore, the exemplar of that is Shabbos itself. Sheba'a al ha'adam kedushat Shabbat af ba'odo bilti muchan. Every seventh day of the week is Shabbos, whether you're ready for it or not. It's going to be there. You may think to yourself, how can I take on Shabbos? I haven't properly prepared. I haven't meditated. I haven't had the time to braid my challahs and float above the air and experience the candles of the Shabbat. Instead, I am totally frazzled and at my wit's end, and I just want to scream at somebody. How can I accept Shabbos? I'm not ready for Shabbos. And basically the response to that is that Shabbos is coming whether you like it or not. It's coming. And you may be ready, you may not be ready. But that's the idea of the Asay Tov, regardless of whether you've yet accomplished the Sur Meirah. That's the idea. Dibi'im lo haya ba ha-Shabbat rak achar taharat halev sheyeh ra'ui lekabel kedushat Shabbat lo haya na'aseh Shabbat le'olam. You hear what he says? He says, if a person would always be waiting to be ready for Shabbos, I'm not going to accept Shabbos until I'm spiritually in that zone, no one would ever observe Shabbos. It's just, we'd never be there. Ki mi yachol lomar zachiti libi sheyeh ra'ui lekabel kedushat Shabbat shehu mein olam haba. After all, who can really say that I've purified myself and I've duly prepared myself for this otherworldly experience that we call Shabbos? He says, Rak shebihitgalut kedushat Shabbat kol dinin arkin v'itaberu mina v'az na'asu nafshot Yisrael muchanot b'tzad ma v'afilu am haaretz emat Shabbat alav. He says, the Zohar says that when Shabbos comes, sort of like all of the negativity sort of detaches from a person. It happens not only on a metaphysical level, but also it's the sanctity of the Shabbos that can have a transformative effect even if you haven't done those preparatory steps that you should have done. But somehow, once you light those candles, you take a sigh and something just comes over you. And so whether you were ready 5 minutes ago or not, Shabbos comes. And that's the idea of Ephraim coming before or standing in front of Menasha. We didn't take care of all the things that we were supposed to do. We didn't accomplish all of the Sur Meirah, turn away from evil, uproot the evil. But you know what? We got no choice. Shabbos is here. And life is moving. Life is a constant process in motion. You can't stop and say, no, wait, I'm not ready for the next step. It's too late. It's here. וכאין זה הם יום טוב פסח ושבועות שבלתי אפשר היה להם לטהר לבבם להיות טהורים לקבל התורה. And now when we reflect upon what we just celebrated on Shavuos, he says, every day after Pesach, one more day, one more day, one more day. How many of us can say we were preparing properly every single day during Sfirat HaOmer for Kabbalah Sator? So, I certainly missed more than one day of preparation during Sfira. I wish I could say that every one of those 49 days I was climbing one more spiritual rung, preparing myself to receive the Torah again. Unfortunately, I'm a wretched failure. But you know what? That's life. He says, Rak shenitnu lahem bepesach he'arot gedolot va'atzumot ma'od az behechrech ne'etka mehem hazu hama b'tzad ma leman yihye b'yicholtam lahachin levavam achar kach b'mei asfira. He says something happened on Pesach when we left Egypt. Something external allowed sort of like this very, very proactive and positive experience allowed some of the schmutz inside of us to start to exfoliate. Uchein Shabbat kinal. And it's just like Shabbos, that kind of phenomenon of Shabbos. The Alkein, and that's the reason why, Nikra Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach Shabbat Bakatuv. He says that's the reason why the Torah itself calls the first day of Pesach a form of Sabbath, because it has that same kind of otherworldly effect that it comes upon you whether you're ready for it or not. Machmat Sheyom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach Ku'in Shabbat. Anyway, Ve'alkein yuvan shebishvil shehimshich Yaakov Avinu koach avodah zu hayoter gedola la'atchil ba'asei tov mikodem ke'in kedushat Shabbat alkein dochesh Shabbat. He says, now let's get back to Ephraim and Menasha. He says Yaakov sort of modeled this idea of sometimes you have to do the asei tov before the sur meirah. And that's why Ephraim, who represents that Sabbath experience of it's going to happen whether you're ready or not, so you might as well start doing the positive even before you uprooted the negative, he has that simpatico with Shabbat. He has that sync. He's in sync with Shabbos, and therefore he can override Shabbos because he's thematically linked with Shabbos, and therefore his korban is most propitious for Shabbos. Aval lefi da'ato shel Yosef, shehavodah tiyeh keseder hakatuv, az lo haya dochesh Shabbat vehavein. He says if we were to use Yosef's system of putting Menasha before Ephraim, wouldn't work. We wouldn't be ready for Shabbos, and Shabbos could not be overridden, therefore, by Menasha's korban. And he says, therefore, work on this, on trying to understand it, trying to internalize this idea. But that's the theme of sort of to try and appreciate that the reason why Ephraim's korban overrides Shabbos is because Ephraim represents what Shabbos should represent to our lives, is that life is constantly in motion. And whether we're ready for it or not, we have to sort of continue trying to move forward. Do another mitzvah, even though I'm not ready for it. I got to wake up for Shacharis. I didn't take an hour to meditate before I'm about to daven, to really think about what my prayers really mean. You just got to go for it anyway. And hopefully tomorrow will be a better day and I'll be better prepared. And when I'm about to do this mitzvah, whatever that mitzvah may be, I haven't properly prepared for it. I haven't gotten the spiritual energy that I need to muster. Sorry, life's moving too quickly. Be there. Live it in the moment. Experience it. And hopefully by the time you're ready for the next mitzvah, you'll be better prepared. Don't allow the fact that you have not properly eradicated the evil, that you haven't done the Menasha part, to stop you from moving forward and doing the Ephraim, because it's going to be there whether you like it or not. Yes?
Despite all the good about everything, what about the huge deception? Does that go unpunished?
What deception?
Of switching them.
You mean Yaakov's deception?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't deceiving. Yosef was right there. He saw what was going on. He said, the Torah says that Yosef turned to Yaakov and he said, Lo chen avi. He says, Dad, you got it mixed up. And Yaakov says, Yadati b'ni yadati. I know what I'm doing. Don't worry. You're thinking maybe of Yaakov and Esav instead of Ephraim and Menasha. That's another different story. Different story. Yeah.
Question. Where it says here that Tzaddikim goes rim and HaKadosh Baruch Hu Makayim, I'm sure there's a lot of fine print involved with that.
Yes.
But what does that mean? I mean, then why couldn't the Tzaddikim say Hitler should die? Like, how does that work? Why wouldn't they be gozer good things all the time?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that question. I think that, it's not an absolute statement that Tzaddik gozer v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim. Even Avraham was unsuccessful at averting the destruction of Sodom, right? Why didn't Avraham say, God, it's my decree that you do not destroy Sodom? It doesn't work that way. There are times, however, and the concept of Tzaddik gozer v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim is that God is waiting for man to be his partner in bringing about that which needs to be brought about. So there are situations where basically Hashem is waiting for the man in the story to be the trigger for what needs to get done. It's not that you think Hashem was opposed to this plan of putting the Aseh Tov before the Sur Meirah? No, of course not. But he was waiting for Yaakov to teach that lesson to all of his future descendants, to the Jewish people. That as logical as sometimes it seems, and as perhaps as much as we would think that this is the divine will, to do things sequentially in order and without any hypocrisy, that that's the divine will, the world is not neat as we would like it to be. And therefore we have to move forward in a way that sometimes is messy. And that's what the Gzeira of the Tzaddik is in this story.
I understand what you're saying about this story, but I think that people really do believe that, and that's why they go to tzaddikim for brachas, and they feel that if a tzaddik says, you will be okay, you will be healed, then somehow Hashem will make it happen. And I'm just asking, not with the steps and all that, but, you know, like, why do we have that idea?
I mean, it has to do with the idea of a tzaddik giving a bracha, that Hashem uses the tzaddik as a kli, as a vehicle to get his work done. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. It only works when the blessing is conditional. But if there's a decree that Hashem has already decided, it doesn't work that tzaddik goes there v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayim. That's the point I'm trying to respond with. It's not an all the time kind of. It doesn't work all the time. It works some of the time. It doesn't work all the time.
So then there's no point in saying it.
No, there is a point. I mean, there's more to elaborate, but we're out of time. Yes?
I just wanted to ask if you give a class on tefillah.
I have given a class on tefillah in the past. Perhaps we should do a class on tefillah. So we'll work on it. Maybe we'll do an evening series in the future. Okay? All right. Have a good day, everyone. See you next week.